What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. Another new location. I'm actually here at our watch party set in Toronto, Maname Athletic Center. Can't see it, but the stage is behind me. Everything's very dark. I'm going to be going live shortly. For this video, like Thursday morning before the event, I'm going to go live shortly with the usual pregame, but I figured we'd follow through, get that Q&A recorded. Some of y'all submitted some great responses. Had about like 30 or 40 responses. I picked like the best 15, I think I'd give some good answers. So let's dive in, see what you guys asked, and let's see if I can give you guys some entertainment. All right, first we have my guy Sal. Who out of the top 5, excluding the obvious OpTic, has the most to prove at this major? Ooh, good question. I would say Seattle to me. I think New York, like Boston. New York to me is interesting because they've already won an event, but it was the beginning of the season. Have they fallen off? Boston, waiting for them to get to that, final hump and win one. Seattle won one last year. They haven't made a change, and they've been bang on, average to terrible most of the season, outside of getting to the grand finals in Major 1. So they've fallen off harder than, say, New York, and I think they don't have a good performance at this event. I think it's going to be one of those what-if seasons where they probably should have made a change in the middle of the year. All right, next up we have my guy Shefu. Shout out Shefu. If you could choose 4 orgs to come in with expansion, who would they be? 5 if you count LAG spot. I'm going to do 4. I would like for Cloud9 to come in, TSM, Liquid. And that one's easy. It's your 3 big NA orgs. I would love if we had a South American team. I know that sort of region of COD isn't really developed, but having a Furia or an MIBR, if we had a really good Brazilian Latin American team, would be pretty hype. That's a pretty underserved sort of region of COD and not really super developed yet. That's 4, and maybe when we come up with a 5th one, it might be interesting. I would say Sentinels. I think Sentinels would be interesting. They do content well. I think that would be awesome. We have a regular Twitch mod and my guy Momo Bro coming in with the, did you have a French vanilla from Tim Hortons? No, I have not. See, here's the thing about Tim Hortons. I live in Columbus, Ohio. We have Tim Hortons in Columbus, Ohio. And as far as I've been told, the Tim Hortons are kind of mid now in Canada, so I don't really think I'm missing out, but no, I have not had one yet. I will say I like the Timbits, though. Timbits are fire. All right, we have one of my mods, Joel, coming in with an interesting one. If you had to watch only one esports event, what would it be? COD Champs, CSGO, Majors, or Worlds? Well, I don't really follow or watch League of Legends that much, so we'll go ahead and remove that. I love COD Champs. I just don't think it yet compares to the scale of major CSGO majors. The Paris major from last weekend was insane. The support was insane. The crowd was insane. I just think we're not at that level yet, and to me, I would have to go with CSGO. All right, next up we have Matt. Is it realistically possible for us to go back to more open bracket pool play style events? Maybe not for champs, but for the regular season. I know logistically it may not be fair to the pro teams who bought in at 25 mil and not have a guaranteed spot in the event after pool play, but it was way more fun that way on LAO. Well, so we basically have a pool play event in the sort of Major 1 Pro-Am format. I think they got to run that back at the beginning of the year. To me, that's the perfect December, November, around game launch or game release type event. I don't think there's a question of that. You need to have at least one more throughout the season, where that's kind of in the middle of the season or after champs. I think you just got to add kind of one more. I don't see the league really. I would love for pool play events to come back. I don't see the league really budging on it. There's a lot of arguments that those style events can be tough to follow. If you really want to do it right, you have to do kind of what CSGO does, and it's basically a whole week event with a day off in the middle, right? They do pool play on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They take Friday off, or they take Thursday off, and they're in the arena for 2 or 3 days. We'd have to do that, and I think they get very expensive. We really wanted to scale it out, but I think doing the convention center style events like we had in Raleigh and do that twice a year, I think that'd be really cool. All right, we got Xena with the Mbappe profile pick. It looks from maybe the World Cup final. I don't know. How would you say Daniel Tsay has done in the last 2 years as the GM? I think he's talking about the GM of CDL. I think the CDL has been much better than they've been given credit for, especially with things like Pro-Am, Blueprints, Ranked, and Twitch. Okay, so I think Daniel's done a good job. I think there are a lot of wins he's gotten on the board. As far as getting the season to start earlier, going back to the CWL style of getting it started in November, December, that's been a big W. Then getting us back on Twitch, and I think we're in the midst of probably the most watched season of Call of Duty ever. That's a W. Figuring out the watch party thing, that's a W. Ranked, that's more on the developer side, and I would say that's still. We have ranked, but I would say that they need to get that earlier. There's still some room for improvement. And I think some of the skins and the MTX strategy has been much better in the CDL. Probably the last 2 years and the first 2 years, where it was just sort of an afterthought. Now we've got team created camos, we've got regular rewards. I think there's still a lot of work to do there, but I think he's done a good job. I think there's other things that's not listed here. I think the biggest thing for me is challengers, actually. I think Daniel's and what the team has done in terms of, I think, really expanding the challengers elite, or sort of what was the old sort of National League concept from the CWL era, and really making it sort of a midweek attraction. It's getting a lot of coverage. it's getting a lot of exposure for those players. I actually think that that's actually just as big as a win as the season starting early. And we need to continue to develop challengers. I think that's sort of our breach in how we can get and expand the game globally outside of non-English speaking countries to like Latin America, to Asia. That's the path forward, and I really tip Daniel on that, so I would say he's done a good job. All right, we got Dan, aka Heel Boy. If expansion were to happen, what cities/orgs would you like to see represented? Also, who would you bring into those new teams to help them establish themselves? Ew, so it's like a pretty open-ended question. I would say we probably want a French team, a Spanish team, but it sounds like we're getting one with Miami Heretics. Keep having a London team. I think that kind of covers Europe. I think we need probably a team in Chicago. We'd love to see Energy go back in on that one. Or I know Immortal is a sort of Great Lakes base. That would be sort of interesting. Philly would be a really good city to have one. Maybe the Houston Outlaws get in the mix with a spot, and we have a couple Texas teams. Complexity getting a Texas spot would be really cool. I think that's, I mean, you basically could pick another couple of U.S. cities, but that's kind of how I would do it. I don't really think we can expand much outside of like US and Europe. I'd love for us to get into other regions. I'd love for us maybe to like get a Saudi Arabian team or something. But I just think phase one is sort of getting more reach in sort of English speaking countries in Europe and the US. All right, we got Ryan. Favorite Clayster moment. I would say my favorite Clay moment is when I was his one of his mods, and I would point out plays in the chat, and he would just steal what I said in the chat to his teammates as if it was an original idea. That was my favorite Clay moments. Nah, I think my favorite Clay moments were honestly less like kind of public moments and more, you know, when I was like kind of first getting in the scene, I kind of, you know, have a lot of respect for Clay because he kind of put me on, got me connected with a lot of people, and you know, when he moved to Austin, like we hung out a bit. So I think those like kind of private hangout moments, like when we watched like the World Series together and stuff like that, to me, those are my favorite Clayster moments. And like, you know, he's obviously had some great public plays. I can name like 7 in AW, for example, Black Ops 2. You know, still been doing his thing since then. But I really tip Clay. He's been one of my long-term friends, and shout out to him. He's kind of like him and Hitch got me really into esports, especially CoD Esports. So, all right, we got Noisy, who apparently is at Major 5 here in Toronto. So, shout out, my guy. If you were to put the venues majors from last year on a tier list, what order would you make up? The venues and majors from last year. So, I'm assuming he's talking about last year, not like this year, last year. So, last year, I would say, trying to remember all the venues. So, we had ESA twice, and then we had Minnesota, the Pro-Am, and then Toronto, and then the Galen Center. So I would probably do Toronto 1, Galen, ESA, and then Minnesota last. I enjoyed the Minnesota event, don't get me wrong, but it was definitely kind of in a smaller scale as the other events. I would love for us to go back to Minnesota, and I would love for us to go back to that casino if it wasn't snowing. I was working out of a TV truck for that event, and it was not great walking outside and staring at that golf course that I couldn't play. But that's how I would rank him from last year. All right, we got my boy Mrags. Shout out Mrags. What are the pros and cons, in your opinion, to having all 12 teams represented at champs? Pros are you have all teams there, and there could be a Cinderella story. There could be someone that just kind of gets hot at the end of the season. They've been sort of average all year, and they just get in and they win. It's a really great story of like clutching up. I think the con to me is, and kind of why I'm sort of opposed to really having all 12 teams at sort of the like bracket stage of champs, is I feel like you can't suck all year and just be given a free pass to the playoffs event. I'm open to like playing ideas, like giving one of those last spots to a little mini tournament, but I don't think that we should have all 12 teams at champs. I just feel like if look at London, for example. I love those guys. You know, I managed a few of them, like Scraps and Asen back in the day, but they've won 0 matches on LAN this season. I don't think that performance should get them in. It is going to Vegas and going to champs. All right, only a couple more left. We got Josh with, should the league have a salary cap type thing to avoid some of the bigger market teams getting the best players? Here's the problem. They had that in the beginning of the CDL. They had a luxury tax. If you exceeded like 1.2 or 1.5 mil, every dollar you spent was a 100% tax. And then what happened is, apparently that violates like labor laws, because you can't have a salary cap without having a contractual bargaining agreement between the players in the league. So the Justice Department started an investigation. Activision recently, as of like a month or 2 months ago, came to agreement with the DOJ. I think it's still in front of a judge to approve like the settlement, the consent decree, but they tried it. It already failed. So they really can't run it back again. I think like in general, this is always going to be a problem. Like people are going to want to play for FaZe, OpTic, and Thieves. My response is for the other teams to develop their brand so that players want to go play for those teams and those markets. All right, we got Steven with a great one. If OpTic win Major 5, will Eggs finally compliment OpTic? Bro, if you've watched COD for a long time, you know that Pat is like the OG OpTic hater. I would be surprised it pat gasses them after this event if they win. I would be super surprised. I love to see it, but I don't think he will. All right, only 2 left. Starting off with Kevin in the FaZe house in Austin. How was the camaraderie between all the boys? Were you involved in any cool or fun stuff we did? Yeah, I mean, I would go over there. So I lived, the house was sort of southwest Austin. If anyone knows sort of the West Slaughter Lane area of town, like off of like Mopac, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And I was sort of right by sort of South Austin, like really in South Austin mix. So I was like 10, 15 minutes away by car. I mean, it was good. I think initially that the chemistry in the house was good, but I think Ian and Clay have talked about how, part of the problem with team houses and sort of those houses is if you sort of have significant others lives there, the tension kind of sucks. And on top of that, I think that they had already sort of had some issues with their team dating back to like Black Ops 3 that they never really addressed and kind of came to head that year, leading to sort of the changes in the trades with United. In terms of fun stuff, I mean, I was there all the time, just like hanging out. We watched a lot of sports together. I built a lot of PCs for them. We did a bunch of stuff. We never really like went out and hung out a lot in downtown Austin. That was probably like my biggest regret. We never did like some cool 6th Street or like Rainy Street stuff, but we hung out and had a lot of fun that year. Finally, last one, we have my guy Fig with the funny Shotzi profile pic. Dude, Ant's a legend for that pick. Thoughts on a CoD World Cup type event somewhere, maybe off-season, where players form teams per home country and compete for money? Yes, we should do it. Whoever has money, Activision if you're down, Breaking Point if you're down, let's talk, because Tom and I would love to do this. We'd love to get involved. I would love to be like a broadcast partner or do content or something, because we should do this. It'd be a fun off-season thing. We can do it for charity. We can do it in Europe. We can do it in NA, wherever. I think this would be a really cool experience and we should get it done. All right, and now I'll do it for the video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Really excited. The Toronto event is ongoing. Make sure you stay tuned to the stream all weekend. I'll be live in the mornings and then through matches with the flank. Be live like 12 to 14 hours a day, giving you all the coverage from this event. So I'm really excited. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And guys, we'll see you on the next video.